that 1907 Fenerbahçe are going to stick with what they did before. Before, they did ban away the Galio. Now they have to debate. Okay, debate is over. They're going to ban away the Callista. Things like, having a look, Zaya could be a high priority, but Team oNe eSports is saying, no, we really value that Lulu. It is a big pick for 1907 Fenerbahçe. Japon, during the group stages of the play-ins, did put a lot of focus on getting that support pick, and Team One are trying very hard to take it away from him.
But then I look at it and I say, you've still got Zaya and Rakan left open here for 1907 Fenerbahçe, which is a strong duo. If you want it, you can pick the Jarvan up that you talked so much about in the first pick and ban phase.
And you're guaranteed to get the Rakan as well, because you can see that the Lulu is already going to the other side. So you're guaranteed a Zaya Rakan, you're guaranteed a Jarvan. We talked about how you can't afford to give Pan and Japon a really strong 2v2, and then not only do you ban away Tristana, who's arguably one of the best answers to a Zaya, but you also give them one of, if not the current, strongest 2 versus 2 in the bot lane metagame. So many question marks from the side of me, anyway.
There's always a possibility they have something up their sleeve. We have seen the Varus a few times across this tournament for specifically the laning phase, and that is what they're going to lock in here. It's a possibility that they can still win out that lane.
To be fair, like, Varus into Zaya is fine, but the problem arises when it's Rakan Zaya, because that 2v2 is not conventional in the sense that, remember, when she uses her W, you get bonus damage because you're paired up with the Rakan as well. And a champion like Lulu, she was very meta, along with things like the Karma in spring, very early on in the year, really all across the world. But then she had a bit of nerfs to her base HP, and that's where champions like Thresh and Rakan really started to find their own, because she's so much squishier in the early game. So if you make her the focus in a few of these early skirmishes, it's very easy to just shut her down, or at the very least burn a few summoner spells that forces her to play more reserved, and as a result, concedes more lane pressure. So Team One clearly have a strategy in mind. By locking in the Galio, they have the ability to roam both bot and top in the assumption that it's in the middle lane. But we do know that that champion has often gone in the top lane for the majority of this tournament.
So there's a few bans here that I want to talk through. Because we're seeing jungle bans coming out from Fenerbahçe, I think that Jarvan is probably in the jungle. Because we see a Lucian ban from Team One, I think that Galio is probably in the mid lane, because Lucian is such a common counter pick for it. I wonder if we'll see Thordrin bringing out his Maokai once again up towards that top lane.
You would expect so. I think that they've got plenty of damage with the Zaya, the Corki, and along with the Jarvan in terms of the early game, where he'll transition into a bit more of a tank later. Just round things out now with a big beefy front line to make sure that you have some kind of follow-up from the engage of the Rakan, unless, of course, that pick gets taken away from you in advance. But it does give 1907 Fenerbahçe the ability to counter-pick now. Things like the Cho'Gath is still available, Gnar is also another option that Thordrin could go for.
And Thordrin is so confident on so many different champions. Team One will lock the Rek'Sai as their jungler for Forlan, an aggressive early jungler. We want to see a little bit more aggression from him in this game. He wasn't really able to take those early kills as we expected from him in game one.
Very concerned about the damage from Team One eSports right now, though, because yes, you've got this amazing ability to dive onto the backline. You can engage with the Rek'Sai, you then have the follow-up from the Maokai, and you have the additional CC and damage reduction from a Galio too. So much engaged power comes from this comp from Team One, and around the mid-game, level 6 to level 11, is where this composition is really strong, especially with the Varus. But in the late game, this composition is really going to lack that damage. And when you compare that to a Corki, a Zaya, both scale incredibly well into the late game, along with the fact that Cho'Gath is one of the few tanks that, thanks to his ultimate, can really chunk out other tanks as well. I'm concerned for Team One and their ability to play in the late game. It's going to be very reliant on them to get early lane leads, utilizing their ultimates around the map.
And that's what we wanted to see from Team One coming into game one. That was how we expected them to play. They're much more an early focused team than a team that focuses around having strong late game team fights. Fenerbahçe, on the other hand, are that later game team that enjoy getting to the team fights and having those longer drawn out games. So we'll have to see if these teams can play towards their conventional style coming into game two of this series.
Well, we shall see, because remember that Vert, very well known for his split pushing style. the most success we've seen from Team One is when they're allowed to play the 1-3-1 kind of composition, but they have effectively drafted a bit more of a team fight comp that is reliant on utilizing the level 6 spike of champions like the Galio. So we're going into game 2 completely reset for both teams. Let's see if Team 1 can be the team to get that early advantage this time around.
And how do they get that early advantage if they're going to acquire it? Where are they looking? Are you going towards mid? Are you going towards bot? Because as we said in Picks and Bans, you don't really have a huge amount of damage to back up that early gank.
I think in the early game you actually have quite a lot of damage. I mean, the thing about tanks is usually their base values are pretty high, but then they don't scale exceptionally well, largely because, you know, you will build tanky items, but also just naturally within their kit, the scaling is not amazing. That's why I'm putting a lot of emphasis on things like the 6 to 11 spike, because you get a lot of extra damage from simply having levels in your abilities. And around level 6, you naturally have your ultimate, and level 11, you start maxing your second ability too. So that's where you have a fair amount of damage, and it's around the 1 item spike, and that's where Team 1 will definitely be very, very strong. And what they can do is once they hit level 6, you can make TP plays down the bottom lane. But I think the best way for them to get early leads is, number 1, use the Rek'Sai and Maokai to gank a lot onto the Cho'Gath, or you invest a lot bot lane, because you're expecting both Pan and Japone to push with this 2v2 that they have, and you want to try and punish the overextension of that duo lane, especially, again, once Absolute hits the level 6 mark. You have Chain of Corruption, you have the Galio ulti as support. Like, you have so many tools to sort of punish the aggression that is trying to be made from Fenerbahçe, and I think that's the best option for Team 1 to try and make. I think the worst thing they can do is just sit and farm.
Looking down towards bot lane is something that people who try and break down 1907 Fenerbahçe's weaknesses say is a good way to get on top of them, because Padden and Japone in the past have not looked strong as a duo in the laning phase. But Game 1 perhaps plays against that storyline, plays against that idea, because they were the dominant force for 1907 Fenerbahçe. Have to see if they're able to continue that form coming into this game.
Yep, Pan and Japone definitely stepped up. We heard the analyst there talk about it. Their expectations were that if Team 1 were going to get a lead, it would be through the bottom lane. They tried to. They said, we don't think you can play Kalista. We think that we can just out 2v2 you. That kind of fell apart. But now we have to track Forlan, where he's looking to get the early aggression. We talked about how he could go either bot or top, and he's got his eyes set on Thaldrin right now.
We've seen him gank top early on in the past. Here he goes, burrowing in, looking for the root as well as Vert lands it onto Thaldrin, the flash away, but the follow-up flash, and once again, Thaldrin might be the first blood target for Team 1.
Ooh, Forlan with the laugh spam as well. The thing about this jungler is, as you rightly said before, he is that early catalyst. He's the guy that likes to get those early frags, get the early kills, especially if he can to onto the top laner. And you can see here that the focus really needs to be on Thaldrin. The fact that he flashed very early on was a bit of a mistake. And right there, look at that laugh span coming out from Forlan. This guy is a big momentum individual. He loves the hype. He loves rolling off early advantages. And if he can, he loves to taunt his opposition.
And you can see Thaldrin has learned a little bit as well, because last time he teleported straight back into lane and got caught out once again. This time he is still getting forced away by Forlan. And that's quite a lot of damage onto the Cho'Gath. Forlan does need to be careful, because Crash is on his way, has the Blast Cone. As Crash continues to push up, Blast Cone into the knockup. Forlan, of course, no flash. We'll have to try and get away, but the silence comes out from the Feral Scream. Trying to get to that first burrow and then looking for the second one. Goes into one. Vert's on his way. The second burrow away. The flash in by Crash, but a great knockback! That is how you do it, Team 1.
Fantastic interruption there from Vert, but Forlan, his confidence nearly backfired. You can see him on the player cam. Very hyped, very excited that his top lane is there to back him up. But you have to criticize Forlan. That play was too aggressive. It was way too cocky. He should have died, but fortunately Vert was there to save him.
But we talked about this team in Game 1, Bedius, and we said they're a bunch of young guys, they're a bunch of motivation, emotion-driven players. And if you can have a play like that, where you get up into the enemy's face and you step up to them and you say, show me what you got, show me what you can do, and you get away at the end, that has to be motivating as a team.
It's also got to be a bit of a tilter for 1907 Fenerbahçe. They're feeling pretty good right now. They're saying, you know what? If you're going to laugh at us, we're going to kill you. We're going to get an easy kill right here. The Corki's even making his way up through the river. Maybe he can get that kill, but then Vert there with the tree smash. is able to get the interrupt of the EQ combo, and that means that he walks away with his life. Now my eyes are on the bottom lane, though.
Forlan did give up his blue buff for that. We saw Crash going in, stealing it away. Bottom lane, have to see if Team 1 are aware that Japone is waiting. Padden there as well, looking for the blade caller. Heal comes out as 1907 Fenerbahçe are forced away.
Good punish there from Absolute. He did have to use the heal, and you can see that his flash is actually already gone, thanks to an early trade that went in the favor of 1907 Fenerbahçe's bottom lane. But this time around, they're able to get a lot of damage down onto Pan, showing the early power that Varus can have. But it feels like for Team 1, a lot of their focus is still going to be towards the top side. They've kind of left the 2v2 on their own. And Crash, he's not really looking at trying to send his way down there as well. But just look at the vision in the river, Medic. There's none of it. It is completely dark. If either team wanted to gank bot, the success rate, I feel, would be relatively high.
Forlan's going to get that Squire's Bloom, so they can ping him out now, and they know where he is. As you say, no wards basically on the bottom side of the map at all, apart from one for 1907 Fenerbahçe that is at those Razor Beaks. Forlan is going to walk straight into Crash, and Bravo away. Crash clearing out as much as he can. A couple more wards have been placed. The river a little bit more bright for you, Betty.
Yeah, it looks like Forlan, he realized, ooh, that bottom lane is a little dark. Allow me to provide enlightenment for my bottom lane. So they should feel a little bit more confident after they have now back to base, and we'll pick up things like the Vamp Scepter. You can also see Bruiser expecting him to work towards the Abyssal Mask, and a Rod of Ages for him, like we've seen from the Cassios on the most recent patch. And now we're approaching that level 6 mark, Medic, for Team 1. We've talked a lot about them because after Game 1, their early game kind of fell apart for them. They lost the top side of the map, Thaldrin was able to roam around to the mid, and then they had control of the mid lane, and the 2v2 fell apart too. So we want to see more from Team 1. That's like, now that they're level 6, now that they're setting up for their composition to utilize some of its strengths, we want to see if they can take advantage of it.
And we want to see if 1907 Fenerbahçe have set this gank up perfectly. There's no vision on Japone or on Crash as they come in. The Feral Scream comes out, the knock up into another, into a kill. Eventually, you have to expect it, though. Vert is going to flash away. Thaldrin's looking for the chase. Does have a flash of his own, but Vert, I am sorry, my man. I predicted that you'd die and you escaped, rising from the grave like Lazarus.
Another beautiful play from Vert. Earlier on, he gets the outplay onto Crash and he keeps his jungler alive. And in a 1 versus 3, this guy is able to turn around the gank and walk away with his life. Yes, it costs him his flash, but think of the pressure that ONE will gain now in the bottom lane. You can already see Forlan making his way there. That's going to be so much turret damage that both Absolute and Redbird will be able to get down. Padden's going to lose so much pressure, and even though he's still ahead in farm, it's going to give a bit more freedom for the bottom lane of Team 1 as that gank went awry for 1907 Fenerbahçe.
And it was that second rotation of ganks where we started to see Team 1 fall behind in Game 1. They started to trade kills rather than just get kills for their own. And I was sure that Vert was going to go down, had no vision at all of 1907 Fenerbahçe advancing. But instead, he escapes and he opens up the map for his team. Forlan's going to start up the Mountain Drake. He has been the superior jungler thus far in this game.
So far, he has indeed been. But Crash is making his way towards the Mountain Drake. His spidey senses are indeed tingling, but then he's like, ah, I see a giant stone golem making his way towards me. So I will back away and just hand over the early Mountain Drake in favor of Team 1. So what we can say is that the early game definitely going better in favor of Team 1 eSports this time around. You have to give a lot of the credit to Vert. Early on, at the beginning of this series, we said how Forlan was kind of the early fragger, the guy that gets those early leads. But really one of the big carries of this team is Vert. Typically, we see him on split pushes. Normally, we see him playing that 1-4 style where the 4-man unit plays around the pressure that he generates. And I feel like in Game 1, we never really saw it. It was all the Thaldrin show. This guy was really a big contributor to the success. But now I feel like we're seeing a little bit more of the individual skill of Vert and what he can contribute to the team when he's allowed to do so. And while he is on Maokai, I'm pretty excited to see what he can do for the rest of this game.
We've seen how strong Vert and Maokai can be. Thaldrin in Game 1, absolutely dominant, as you said. That kill participation setting up so much for his team. That's what we want to see from Vert in this game. At the moment, just trading in to Thaldrin. smacking the face of the Cho'Gath.
And it's really important that we highlight Thorgren as well, because we do describe him as the pillar of the team that allows some of the stars like Frozen and Padden to really shine at the top of it. And it's because of his ability to roam around the map, it's because of his impact in these fights, and it's because he's just the catalyst for so many things that 1907 Fenerbahçe set up for themselves. So two really talented top laners going head-to-head. Game one, it was going in favor of Thorgren. But game two, things looking good for Vert in the early game.
Frozen going in onto Bruiser. Crash with the knockup will connect as Bruiser puts down the Winds of War. Good knockup onto the Jarvan as well. The Cataclysm flashed away from. And once again, we see a Team 1 member escape a gank.
It's starting to get frustrating for 1907 Fenerbahçe. They failed to kill Vert. They failed to kill Bruiser. These early tanks walking away with their lives, yet to use their ultimates to try and make a side lane play. But while all this has been happening, Forlan has been just sneakily jungling the entire map away. He gets the early Mandrake. He's going to get himself this early Rift Herald. And this will allow Team 1 to open up the map in this early game. And things going much more even this time round compared to what we saw in Game 1.
However, there's still that clock. There's still a timer for Team 1. They do have to make these plays between the sort of level 6 to level 11 to perhaps level 15 before Fenerbahçe are able to really scale up, because they have double AD carries. They've got the Cho'Gath tank as well. If you're Team 1, you'll be worried if the game is this even in 10 minutes' time.
Oh, you certainly will be. And just look at the 280 carries as well. Pan off to another fantastic laning phase. 20 CS advantage, same going for Frozen in the middle lane. The only deficit on the side of 1907 Fenerbahçe is up in the top lane. Thorgren suffering to that of Vert. But in terms of the carries, they're off to a pretty good start. But things relatively slow in this early game. No more early action, and this is part of the problem with Forlan. He comes to a lane, maybe he does one gank, he then does another one, and then he just kind of goes into hibernation and permanent farm mode. We don't really see him again until the team starts to fight a little bit more later on. And Crash, on the other hand, he's all about trying to find more ganks. He's all about trying to find that pressure, and right now he wants to use Japon and his very quick engage to maybe get a kill onto one of these bottom lane members. Turns out he's not.
He's not.
He's in fact,
he's not. I was giving him the space in case he wanted to do it before I made my next point, which was deep vision here, Vedius. Look at the wards being placed by 1907 Fenerbahçe deep into the jungle of Team 1. They have a track on Forlan a lot of the time. They have actually both just expired, so this point doesn't sound as good because the wards have just disappeared, but I promise you, they were there.
Now, teleport's available for both top laners. I feel like we're going to see a fight right now.
oNe gets the red.
But he will steal that one away, so he's pretty happy.
If you could stop predicting fights, Vedius, that'd be great, because every time you do, no fight happens.
Got it.
So tell me that there's not going to be a fight, and then we'll have fun.
I don't think... All right, got it. I'll bear that in mind coming into the next few set of exchanges. But now, speaking of skirmishes, Team 1, they're like, aha, so after our skirmish in the bot lane, we know you're going to back away. We know your blue buff is up as well, because we can see the timer. So Forlan's like, I'm just going to go steal away your red. And there's not much you can do about it. No vision from the side of 1907 Fenerbahçe in the top half of their own jungle. You can see Thorgren making his way through the tri-brush, but Vert very quick on his heels. So nothing really going to come about.
They do still have the Rift held in their back pocket, Team 1. So I'd like to see them perhaps looking for a play. Forlan dancing around the top lane, scuttling in onto Thorgren. Here comes the Nature's Grasp as well. We'll cause Thorgren to flash away, and here comes the Rift Herald. Harriet is going to join us on the Summoner's Rift for the time being, as Thorgren tries to defend in a 2v1 scenario.
Thorgren very quickly clears out that minion wave. That's going to be a fair chunk of damage onto the tower, but it will not drop. Both Frozen and Crash, you can see on your minimap, making their way up to the top side as well. And Bruiser, we're just hanging around, basically saying, ooh, I have my ultimate ready in case of an emergency. But instead, nothing comes about it. You know, I had this great conversation with Rusty earlier on, where I find it impossible to say Bruiser without an Australian accent. Whereas when you speak to an American, it sounds like an American name. It's a fascinating, fascinating discovery I found. Just wanted to share that with you.
It's informative, at least, Vedius. It allows me an insight into your mind.
I don't know if you want to go in there.
That's not somewhere we want to be. Let's bring it back to the game. Having a look at the items that have started to be picked up Vert has a Spirit Visage up towards the top side. You've got a Blade of the Ruin King, first item on Absolute. The Trinity Force on Frozen is a strong power surge for 1907 Fenerbahçe.
It's also quite interesting that Absolute would choose to go for the Blade of the Ruin King build rather than the Infinity Edge or Essence Reaver options. We may even see the Rage Blade come out from him this game. We'll have to see, keep track of it as the game progresses. But Forlan, he has caught out Japone.
Chain of Corruption comes out as well. They're trying to lock him down before he can jump away with the quickness, and they will take him out. Team 1 coming in. Here's the hero's entrance onto Forlan. Brulsa has joined the fight. The teleport's joining as well. Thordrin is in that front line as the rest of Team 1 push forward through the 1907 Fenerbahçe team. That's going to be a dead choke out. That Blade of the Ruin King is doing work. Brucer gets taken off towards the side, but here come the Kittens. They're on a chase. They want a taste of Frozen. He's going to use the cleanse, but immediately caught up. And Team 1 continue to advance, continue to push, and continue to get kills against 1907 Fenerbahçe.
This is the best scenario for Team 1. They want to be fighting at this point in the game. Vert, he comes in with the teleport. We talked about how he can be one of the big carries for his team, and his impact in that fight was phenomenal when you combine the confidence that Forlan showed in that exchange. He was not afraid to go for that 1 versus 3. He was not afraid to go straight into the thick of the opposition because he knew he had Brucer on his back. He knew that Vert would be ready and waiting, but now Vert has been caught out.
And he's dead.
He is indeed dead. That is a 1 squished up Yordle. So Fenerbahçe, 1907 Fenerbahçe rather, will be able to get themselves a kill back.
And although Team 1 are the team that are getting these kills and getting the Mountain Drakes, the gold is still perfectly even between these two teams. We're only 4 minutes away from that 20-minute mark, only 4 minutes away from the point where I said Fenerbahçe would be very happy to be even because they scale up a little bit better. And Team 1 need to take a couple more of those fights to be able to actually accelerate this game.
Exciting, okay? It's certainly very exciting. So let's see
how you didn't predict a fight here.
Yeah, exactly that. So what you're going to see here, the big thing you need to track is the teleports from both teams, because this is a bad setup for 1907 Fenerbahçe because they've already lost their engaged tool right at the start. But now Absolute and Redbird zoned away from 2 members. So it's effectively a 3 versus 2 on the top end, while it's a 3v1 in the bottom end. And so it's just a matter of who can kill that front line first. And Patton, he hasn't even completed his first item yet. So he doesn't do the same sort of damage that Absolute does. After that early Blade of the Ruin King that we were talking about, it gives you that extra bit of damage. So they very quickly make their way through Thordrin. And Forlan, he's just sitting on the front line. He's soaking up damage. He's baiting the enemy team towards it. I'm surprised he didn't spam his laugh again because he was just drawing the attention of Kras and saying, chase me, chase me, chase me. Oh, look, I now have a team behind me. You're going to lose your life. So Team 1, they found a fantastic fight, but it's yet to translate into a significant gold lead as of right now.
However, getting those items can help it translate. We've got an Ardent Sensor on Redbird. That is a big power spike for Team 1. Still looking for that first turret. They've moved up towards top lane. Absolute and Redbird trying to chunk down that tower that's already taking a chunk, of course, from Rift Tower.
Decided to swap to the top side. They knew that the bottom lane had already taken significant damage after the fight that had happened between the two teams. With it already guaranteed to go down, they instead decided to go top. They will be very short, or rather a little short on getting that first tower blood, but still pretty happy with it overall. So Vision going to be traded either side as well. You can see Team 1 on your minimap investing a lot of Vision into the top side of the map, and now 1907 Fenerbahçe are worried about that top tier 2 tower, so they're trying to answer.
Forlan engaging onto Japone here, trying to get the quickness out as well. Knock-up into the double knock-up. He does escape, but here comes the Void Rush for the kill, and they'll get the second knock-up. They're just diving, Vedius! And Team 1 secure 2. Thordrin will finally nom down on a bit of Zersai as the Queen falls for Forlan.
But what confidence coming out from Forlan. He immediately sees the opportunity and goes for it. Japone and Patton trying to make their way up to the top lane to defend that tier 2, but they take a risky path. They end up getting collapsed upon. Brucer is there with the damage reduction, and now we might see another fight in the jungle.
Crash looking for that blue buff. We are going to see Brucer and Frozen fight up towards the top side. There is a Valkyrie. Crash gets locked up, taunted down by the Shield of Duran. He's going to get to a blast cone. Will use it, but Vert's already flashed the wall, and now actually Vert is on the wrong side of this. He will take down Crash and escape. The tree is too tanky for the Corki to remove from the map.
And the Brazilian representatives using momentum so effectively these guys, they've gotten this lead, and even though the goal doesn't feel like in their favor, they're getting kills, they're getting towers, they seem to be getting control over the whole map. And that just is not stopping them from forcing these plays. But now, Absolute, he's in some trouble. Has
to flash away from the second knockup. Tholjin doesn't have Beast, but has a huge amount of damage on that Cho'Gath. And Redbird, without mana, wasn't able to protect his AD carry.
Surprised Absolute didn't just throw out the ulti preemptively there, but it looks like maybe they want to try and defend this top tier 1. We're going to have a look back at how this fight came about. And again, this is the confidence that I was talking about. Fallout immediately onto Japone. They know they can win this 2 versus 2. Good interrupt there from Bruiser, and then the immediate follow-up from Redbird. Then they go, you know what, we can dive. It doesn't matter. Patton, he doesn't have his ultimate left up. I'm a Rek'Sai. I've gone for an early Tiamat and an early Phage. I have plenty of damage. And they're able to get themselves a double kill down onto the bottom lane of 1907 Fenerbahçe. So really great stuff from T1 eSports this time around. Great to see that even though they fell at a pretty significant deficit in game 1, they are not letting that affect their mentality in game 2.
Morlan engaging onto Padden, looking for the chase with Absolute. The charm comes out from the quickness. Teleport join the fight as well, because here comes Vert. The root is going to land. Does keep Padden safe as Japone takes it up for his team. The chain of corruption there from Absolute was a mile wide. Vert's continuing to chase in. Feather Storm, here's the hero's entrance, looking for the knockup onto Tholjin, lands it at the right edge of it. But meanwhile, in the mid lane, Boza continues to push, and Team 1 have invested a lot up towards the top side of the map. Crash is not done yet. The taunt comes out, the double knockup, and now it's up to Absolute to actually join this fight. The polymorph comes down as Fenerbahçe Crash will just about escape with the heal. The mid-second tier tower is being pushed in by Frozen.
Beautiful team fight from 1907 Fenerbahçe. These guys stalled out all 5 members of Team 1 eSports long enough for Frozen to take 2 towers in the mid lane. That tower gap has now gone from 1-1 to 4-1 in favor of 1907 Fenerbahçe. And it just shows their ability to play the map. They know they can't win this fight. They know they don't want to try and force anything right now. So instead, they're just going to punish the poor positioning and take advantage of the overcommitted style that Team 1 is trying to force with the lead that they feel they have right now.
And it's something we've seen from Fenerbahçe so often, Vedius, losing in the early game, falling behind, elongating the game, and then playing to their power in teamfights and to their strength in teamfights. Whoa, indeed. That's a Baron. There's no vision. Mounted Drake down towards the bottom side. Fenerbahçe were looking to stop that from happening. Now the pings come out on the Baron. They might just lose it. It's going low. Down to about 4,000 HP. It's already gone. Just taken away there by Team 1. Decisive decision-making from the Brazilians.
We just praised 1907 Fenerbahçe for a great fight. You gotta praise Team 1 eSports for a great decision there. They don't even have vision on the bottom side, but they do have vision top. They're like, that entire area of the map is dark. We're pretty confident that Frozen's either just gone back to base or he's going to be clearing out the mid-wave. We can rush this. We can actually do this very quickly, and they just clean it up without any kind of answer from 1907 Fenerbahçe. The gold instantly evens up. Team 1 eSports get a tier 2 tower up in the top lane. And Medic, this is the kind of game we wanted. Much closer between the two teams. No early dominant start, but I'm still concerned for the late game team fights for Team 1. Where will their damage come from? They do still have a fair amount of damage on the Rek'Sai at this point, but in the late game, a Corki, the Xayah, the Cho'Gath ultimate, will one really be able to compete with them in these team fights? That's the big question I have for Team 1 right now.
And you wonder how comfortable Team 1 are playing a composition that doesn't always fall into their regular strengths. Vert can't really split push too effectively on this Maokai. He can't be the solo carry for the team. He has to be there as part of the team fighting squad to help them face up into the battle lines that 1907 Fenerbahçe will draw.
Indeed.
Indeed, a wise choice. Tholjin, perhaps wisely sitting in the bush, because Absolute steps too far forward here. We've seen Team 1 be confident before. That was great from Redbird. The immediate polymorph, the knockup will come out, but they force Tholjin back. And Bert is actually still split pushing on this Maokai. They know he's got teleport up in just a short while, and they're just looking to pressure and pull 1907 Fenerbahçe across the map.
They're utilizing this Baron pretty well. Finally, Team 1 eSports actually have the gold lead. The CS advantages that 1907 Fenerbahçe had been able to build do not mean that much anymore, thanks to the Baron and thanks to the towers that Team 1 have been able to pick themselves up. Very back and forth game Still undecided as to who will be able to take this one. I feel like one big fight is going to be the determining factor at the end of the day, Medic.
Now you've predicted a fight again, Medius.
Oh, no.
Have side lane
It's
pushing.
literally now the rest of the game is just macro. I can hear Deficio squealing with excitement at home. Now, Team 1 eSports, they've made their way towards the mid. They're going for the engage.
Engage with the charm. Here's the hero's entrance as Absolute jumps out of the back, but Frozen dives all the way in with that Valkyrie. Crash has already crashed and burned in this fight as Forlan looks to go aggressive. They need to be cautious because Frozen is on the backside of this, and he's got a lot of damage on that Corki. The lockdown onto Bert. Japone knocked up another kill. A great double taunt with the shield. Thaldrin in that front line. He's already got one. Bruiser killed. Bert jumps in. Still Frozen up towards the side. Thaldrin will fall. It's a double for Absolute. Team 1 keep going. They keep pushing forward. They cannot quite get the final two members, but Team 1 take the fight, and they're looking. Forlan dives in, says goodbye, and Team 1 are not done. Fenerbahçe scattered to the winds as Absolute chases down Bannon, but Bannon can't do it. Team 1 get the ace.
Team 1 get the fantastic team fight finally going in their favor. We've criticized this team so much for their inability to fight, but right there, they demonstrate that they can bring it to 1907 Fenerbahçe. They're able to win out the fight. They're able to get two massive towers, and they are the ones controlling the pace of this game.
And how the tables turn from game 1 to this game.
Let's have a look at how this engage happens once again. So Japone, he tries to get a collapse onto the main damage dealer. Everything looking good, but then the Galio arrives. The team is split up. Look at the work that Bert is doing on the back line, zoning 3 members away. And Frozen, he doesn't feel confident to actually engage on the fight. Bruiser then comes to the forward line, and he's like zoning. And it's all allowing Absolute the freedom to deal the damage. Yes, Medic. I gave a lot of criticism to this composition because I said, where will the damage come from later? But what I didn't accredit was the fact that there is no reliable backline threat onto Absolute. Every time Crash goes in, there is so much support from the Lulu, from the Galio, that it's really difficult to just instantly nuke him down. And right now, 1907 Fenerbahçe are realizing, oh no, we don't actually have enough to kill the Varus, and he's just going to keep picking up kills.
Yeah, Thaldrin caught out polymorphed, and he's not going to be able to escape from Team 1. 13 kills to 5. Now a 4,000 gold lead has been extended. A 6,000 gold Baron power play of a Baron they did not deserve to get. They should never have been able to secure that Baron, but great vision control and decisive shot calling from Team 1 have set themselves up for success in Game 2 of this best of 5.
Oof. We're well on our way to having a series on our hands, Medic.
And it's so indicative of the way these two regions play against each other as well. Across 13 games, it's 6-7 in favor of Brazil. So even between these two regions, so close when it comes down to these big series.
And you just have to keep your eyes on the player count in these fights as well, because this is a very young team, not a single member over the age of 20. A lot of the Brazilian fans were not expecting this team to be the representative. They wanted the more stable rosters, the more experienced rosters. INTZ, Pain, Red Canids, one of these teams to be that representative. And when you looked at their performance in Group B, there were a lot of concerns. People were like, oh, will they really be able to match up? Will they really be able to perform? Well, here in Game 2, they are saying we can. They are saying, yes, we can compete with many of the other emerging regions, and this is an impressive Game 2. There's still a lot of the series left. They still actually have to close the game out. The scaling is still very good on the side of 1907 Fenerbahçe, but it's nice to see that for a team that relies very much on momentum, energy, excitement, that after a crushing defeat in Game 1, Team 1 eSports were able to reset and come back swinging in Game 2.
And you can see how much Team 1 are funneling into Absolute, giving him both the buffs, not keeping the blue for Bruiser in that mid lane. Now setting up vision control around this Baron. There are some wards for 1907 Fenerbahçe and that Scryer's Bloom that will spot out Forlan as they push forward. Once again, Vert is in that side lane. He's doing what he does for this team. He's drawing attention across the map and opening up areas and avenues of Summoner's Rift for Team 1.
Now the Baron will respawn. This is definitely going to be a big objective. 1907 Fenerbahçe not going to want to give this one away for free. And you've got to remember, Padden in these fights will be the player to watch out for, because he's had a lot of hype surrounding him when you get to this point in the game. I still remember his Cogmore in the 3 versus 5 against HKA. Him and Tholdrin did an excellent job of being able to turn that fight in their favor. And I can't shake off that feeling that this team fighting prowess of 907 Fenerbahçe could still be a big factor in turning this game in their favor. So, Team One, though, they still have the gold lead. They still have this very strong AD carry in Absolute, who can't afford to be underestimated either.
And this is where patience and experience play such a factor, Vedius. When you get to this sort of position, when you're setting up vision, when you're drawing the enemy into the traps that you set, the bushes that you clear, Team One need to be respectful of what Fenerbahçe can do, but they don't care at the moment as they jump onto Frozen. They get the flank, but Japone now caught out. Here's the hero's entrance. Absolute still alive. That's a dead Rakan. He gets melted, and now Team One will turn their eyes towards the Baron.
Beautiful pick from Team One. Forlan using that confidence once again, gaining control over the top side of 1907 Fenerbahçe's jungle, waiting for the pick, using the Tremor Sense to catch that carry out of position. And now 907 Fenerbahçe, they want to try and steal the Baron. I don't know if Crash can get there in time.
Flashes in, he does not get it. Forlan secures, and he can spam laugh all he wants, because he is laughing all the way to the bank. The root lands onto Tholdrin as 1907 and Fenerbahçe are running for the hills. Redbird will get the root. There's the double for Forlan. 17 to kills to 5. Team One are looking dominant.
They have the Baron. They have all 5 members. They still have a TP on Bruiser as well. This looks like a game win for Team One. It is going to require a miracle fight for 1907 Fenerbahçe to be able to turn this one around. I was skeptical of the comp, but they have made it work fantastically as they lay their eyes on the first inhibitor of the game.
And what a comeback from them from game 1, where they got just demolished, deconstructed almost by 1907 Fenerbahçe. Team One now stepping up and saying, look, we can give as good as we get, taking their first inhibitor of the game. The lanes aren't quite in their favor, so they will back, spend that gold. But look at this catch from Team One.
And again, it's that Tremor Sense from Forlan. He identified who was over the wall. He comes over looking for that pick. The rest of the team immediately following up. You can just see how difficult it is to kill Absolute. He has so much protection behind him. Because of how far ahead he is, he does so much more damage than Pan does. Beautiful execution once again. And Team One, everything looking great.
And we were talking as that Baron got set up about patience and the willingness to wait out the game. Well, sometimes you have to be willing to pull the trigger as well, especially with a composition like this that only really has that one damage threat. If you're playing slower fights, it can play against you quite devastatingly. The Ocean Drake picked up for Team One. They've got double mountain to facilitate that. And it is actually the first Ocean Drake that they have picked up this tournament. Perhaps a good omen for them as they look to close out the game.
You had to get the quick stat in there, didn't you?
The real quick stat is neither of these teams had picked up an Ocean Drake before this game. That's the true quick stat.
And now they have one. So, along with that Ocean Drake, they have Baron and powered minions. They're just stacking up the wave, priming it, getting it ready to siege onto this tower. But they're also waiting for that top lane wave to hit the tower, along with Bruiser in the mid. So they're going for a 3-pronged attack right now. Wave clear, pretty good from the side of 1907 Fenerbahçe for the time being.
Half the health on the tower gone though with one wave push. They've still got a cannon minion here. Mid lane is pushing in. Top lane, the wave is building. Siege minions up there. Of course, the super minions ready to continue to push down that lane. And Team One are playing this patiently. They're puzzled out the map. They are painting by numbers, and they will get their second inhibitor tower. Looking for the inhibitors. Bert jumps in. He just wants to be the front line. The Feral Scream into Redemption to heal him back up. Chain of Corruption doesn't quite connect. The Team One happy just to slowly eke out the base of 1907 Fenerbahçe.
Now making their way towards the middle lane. 5 members versus 5 members. The deficit is so big. 1907, they're going for the engage.
Japone tries to get the charm in, but knocked back. There's the Mercurial Scimitar as well, used from Absolute, and he is able to open up the big guns on the back of this fight. Absolute is legendary, as I'm sure are Team One in this game. They get the 1 kill, and now they can look for a little bit more. Absolute pushing forward, knocked up, but what can Fenerbahçe do in the face of so much hate coming out from Absolute? He is demolishing them, and he is looking for those Nexus towers.
Team One looking so convincing in game two off the back of Absolute and the whole team working together. They're going to get the game back and they're going for another fight.
A final engage from 1907 Fenerbahçe, but Brucer does not care. He steps forward, the Valkyrie comes out, that's the package used. We are going to see Forlan fall, but he's got the GA to come back. Absolute actually called out towards the back. He has the flash. Frozen still doing a lot of work, but the Nexus Tower's a dive. But still, Absolute is just pounding away on this backline. He will kill Thordran. He will kill Japone. Padden jumps in and will perhaps be able to hold this one for the time being. Brucer comes up with a mighty triple at the end. Padden with a triple of his own, but Padden has to turn back and stop these minions from winning the game for Team One.
So Padden actually keeps the game alive for the time being. This guy, we talked about his team fight prowess and how he is the player you need to keep your eyes on right when the Nexus defense has to come out from the side of 1907 Fenerbahçe. He's the one that steps up. His positioning was so crucial in that final fight. And we just got to follow him throughout this entire engagement because things did not look good initially. Absolute free to deal all this damage on the backline. Keep your eyes on Padden and how he plays this fight out. He's going to get locked up initially. Oh no, Thordran soaks up the damage. He's still just chipping away through the front line, still not taking any damage. He gets torn it up. And now he's just keeping his eyes on whoever is in front of him. Forlan decides to commit alone. And he's just relying on the fact that he has not become the target focus. Absolute gets chunked out extremely low off the back of Thordran in that fight. And it was just good positioning, good awareness from Padden to basically just hit whoever he could and not overcommit to try and go for some kind of hero play. And as a result, it ends up buying a little bit more time for 1907 Fenerbahçe.
Although it's bought a little bit of time for them, you still have to think that Team One should be able to close this out. 3 inhibitors down, 2 Nexus Towers down, only the Nexus stands between them and the win. They can just group up as 5 and look for that final push, or they can even wait a minute and a half, go for that Baron, and then try and close out the game with the buff.
That was 11,000 damage from the Xayah in that last fight.
That's pretty impressive.
That's not bad. You still have to show respect to this AD carry, man. He has the GA now completed. Inhibitors are starting to respawn, and as you rightly identified, Baron on its way along with the Elder Dragon. So it's going to be difficult for 1907 Fenerbahçe to really leave their base. But this is what we talked about. Like, there's just that essence. Team One, they definitely still have that control. They're definitely the heavy favorites to win out on this game. There's literally an exposed Nexus waiting for them to just run through the base, and they're going to try and do it right now.
Vert looking for the engage, will jump onto Crash but get knocked up at the end of it. Team One now just go up towards that top inhibitor. Brucer is not with them but does have the hero's entrance to join up if needed. Thordran's now the one to try and re-engage onto Vert, gets the Bell Scream off, the knockup does not connect, the secondary one does. There's the Wildcard, but already Vert is low. Here's the hero's entrance as well, trying to keep him alive. Japone down now, it's a 4v5 in favor of Team One. Look at Absolute, it's a double, he's looking for even more, gets the triple onto Thordran as they continue to push forward. And now Frozen and Padden have to do something incredibly good. Padden manages to take out Redbert down towards the bottom side, but I think Team One just want to go for the Nexus. Frozen's still there, Absolute will go low. Frozen just needs to land an empowered Sheen Rock. Padden comes off towards the back of it. Absolute gets some damage down on towards the Nexus. There gets the kill on towards Frozen, and now Padden forced off towards the bottom of the fight. This will be the win, this will be the Nexus for Team One, and they equalize the series 1-1.
This time around, Absolute, he doesn't give away his life. He keeps the momentum going. You can see the excitement on Forlan's face as well, as sighs of relief come out from the members of Team One eSports. It's going to equalize the series, Medic.
And a lot of people were saying 1907 Fenerbahçe were firm favorites coming into this after Team One's poor performance in groups, only being able to beat Direwolves. We thought that 1907 Fenerbahçe had a tougher test and had shown that they were stronger, but Team One played their composition well, played really well around those spikes in power, those spikes in damage, and were able to close out the game.
And I feel like a lot of the credit has to go on to Vert. This guy, he survived a lot of the early ganks up in the top lane. His impact in a lot of these fights was very impressive. Many times he would soak a huge amount of damage, get very low, and then just barely escape with his life as well. And that provided Absolute with enough time to just pew, 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 pew all the way through the opposition. And it was just a matter of 1907 Fenerbahçe never having enough backline threat to all of a sudden swing the fight in their favor. So credit to Team One bouncing back and looking good in game two. Guaranteed to give us a 4-game set.
I love 4-game sets, and I'm sure Team One do as well, as they've evened up the series. And to hear how they tied it up, let's send it over to our analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Medic. Just got to say, Team One turning it around, coming back. I looked at the draft, I was skeptical, but these guys brought it home in game 2.
I think you got a good reason to be skeptical. I can't really justify giving up Xayah, J4, Rakan in the first phase of the draft just so you can take Lulu first. That to me is just completely baffling.
Yeah, and ultimately they picked the Varus with the Lulu. We've seen this lane before. We know what it's capable of doing, but they still lost their lane a little bit. However, we get outside of the laning phase, we get some early kills onto that Varus, and the team composition starts to make sense when you've got all these tanks that can stand in front of him.
Yeah, and they're supposed to win bot lane with this. You probably want the Galio to go bottom where there's pressure, the Rek'Sai dives, and hopefully you blow the game up through the bot lane. And in that sense, it does make a little bit of sense. It's just what you gave up to get to this game plan is way too much.
And to be fair, we were looking for another damage threat, and we were surprised to see that it was, in fact, the Rek'Sai. It was 4 lane. It was going to be the second damage. So this man went for a super aggressive Rek'Sai build.
It was weirdly aggressive because he built the Cinder Hulk, and then got the Tiamat, and then you're like, okay, he's gonna go for some kind of Titanic Hydra Black Cleaver build, but then he goes—
He's got a dagger mark.
Yeah, then he gets a dagger for Berserker Greaves, and then he goes GA. It was once again a little all over the place.
We weren't sure where he was going when he had the dagger, but we're looking at it.
But at this point, we have a fed Rek'Sai, and things are looking good. But when we take it our first replay, we can see why maybe there was some uncertainty for Team One, because they start things off, things are looking great, but the longer this play goes, you're going to start to realize that they may have stayed a little too long.
And here you see a little bit some of the struggles of that Rek'Sai build. Just starts getting melted by the Xayah. You know, Ninja Tabby probably would have been the right boots to go. And this whole time, while Fenerbahçe, 1907 Fenerbahçe are doing a great job kiting out in the top lane, the Corki is just staying mid and pushing this entire time.
It's that first real big moment, you'd have to say, in this game where Fenerbahçe have a crazy good strategy compared to what ONE were doing, which was just throwing their faces at 1907 Fenerbahçe's composition. Again, what the comps are designed to do, however, with how close they were skirting around their health bars, with how they were able to weave in and out in this situation, 1907 Fenerbahçe get 2 turrets for their troubles, and that was the beginning of what you thought was going to be the macro play that may well get them a victory. Wasn't the case, because straight after things changed, but very clever in that instance anyway from the Turkish side.
And it was also, you know, we were kind of making fun of 4Lane's build a little bit there, but he did have a great early game. He attacked Thaldrun again, set him super, super far behind, which is something coming into the series we were saying, this seems like it's going to be difficult for them to be able to do. We haven't seen Thaldrun really lose laning phase, and when that happens, it feels like FB kind of start falling apart.
And additionally, we talked about the power of comfort picks coming in for Team One, and we look at this next replay brought to you by Acer Predator. You can see how well this team functions when they've got a lead, when they've got an advantage, and when they've got picks they're comfortable with.
Yeah, in the corner of your eye, even, you have to keep your eyes on Frozen as he just disappears. You'll very rarely see him again for the rest of this fight, because ultimately it was all about the Varus, and Absolute versus Pattern is basically the 1v1 of AD carries that you'll see when this fight emerges. And try as they might to do the damage here, FB, they don't do as much as what Absolute's able to.
Yeah, Ver was really, really tanky for this point in the game. This is also with the Baron buff, because ONE was able to grab double Mountain. They went for a very quick 22-minute Baron, and FB was totally unprepared for it. Surprisingly, they didn't have any vision down, so despite that good turret trade, they instantly fall back behind from this Baron, and then after they win this fight, they're actually able to snowball into a massive gold lead.
And this is that 1v1 where he thought he had it, he just didn't.
Vert coming up, supporting his AD carry, who had a rough game 1, but kind of bounced back this time around.
And that was interesting, too, because we talked a little bit about 4Lane, but Absolute also felt like a pretty major factor in making things happen in this game. But just across the board, Team One, this looked so much better to me. But what was generally your impression? Is this mistakes on the side of Fenerbahçe? What is actually happening here that led to this Team One victory?
Combination of both, honestly. I feel like 1907 Fenerbahçe could have made a wealth of decisions that might have been more patient. Again, I don't think Team One were aggressively going at them unless they met in the middle, and then Team One would over-aggress and they'd overextend themselves and make sure they got the team fight they were after. So could have been cleaner on both sides, honestly, but my take is that Team One look at least a lot more comfortable right now in this second game.
It's one of the things where I would want to see a little bit more out of ONE before I'm very confident on this team, just because the draft phase was very strange. You had this strategy around your bot lane winning, and they were actually down 40 CS at like 15, 20 minutes or something like that, so they were getting smashed down there. And the only reason this game plan worked out so well was because Thaldrun fell behind the top side, and then the double Mountain Dragon that they were able to get was converted very cleanly into a Baron, but if you don't get those kinds of things, this comp and the game plan seem to be falling apart.
That's the crazy thing about this game as well, right? Like, Forlan gets Thaldrun behind, suddenly Team One are able to win the game pretty successfully, but at the same time he's building Berserker Greaves, so you're like, really, I guess it's a wish-wash of consistencies from them. You want to see so much more, and even getting the wins with what they currently have, it's impressive, but they could do so much more.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also feel like we have to praise Team One for closing it out with confidence. We take a look at our final replay, we can see that when you look at this team, when they have a lead and an advantage, they do play pretty well around Baron, exposing kind of some of these weaknesses from Fenerbahçe.
This is just really intelligent pathing overall. Looks like they're ward clearing through that typical ramp, but they're actually wrapping around with their engaged tools on the top side, able to catch out multiple members of FB, get 2 quick clean kills, grab their second Baron of the game, and they are able to close it out. There's that one little dip where they all got, aced with triple inhibs down, but from that point in the game, it's one of the hardest things to recover from in the entirety of League of Legends.
Yeah, nothing you can do to come back from that, but now looking forward, Fenerbahçe back on the blue side, 1907 Fenerbahçe rather, but now Team One even more interesting. Now they're taking Brewster out. Brewster just won a game, now Marf is coming in. This is, I think, the hottest debate on the desk that we've had in a long time, but explain to me what's the logic here?
Character switches can come at weird times, usually when you're looking for counter picks, so it makes sense a little bit that they're going to be moving back to red side and they want to take this Marf choice, and they might be able to use his champion pool a little differently. He has some more specific picks that he plays, and they're hoping to find some way to equalize that mid matchup because Brewster did fall behind once again around 30 CS.
Yeah, he does have some crazy picks. He does have some really cool champions that he's able to bring out, and he's a very different style of player to that of Brewster. If Brewster's meant to survive his lane, maybe shut down his opponent, and he's losing his lane, not shutting down his opponent, then there's a fairly obvious choice with where you would want to go, and that is picking Marth up and trying to match Frozen's roaming and his ability to get around the rift.
And of course, on the opposite side, Fenerbahçe don't have the option to bring out subs. We did see how much more crucial. I feel like we saw for the first time this tournament, Thaldrun exposed and kind of shut down very early on, and that feels like a sign of concern for Fenerbahçe because the whole team, as you mentioned earlier, didn't feel on the same page once he was no longer able to be that consistent frontliner.
Yeah, right. When you're meant to be the rock of the team, to fall behind and no longer be able to provide that suddenly puts you on the back foot as a whole team because he can't tank.
And the one thing I'd want to see is it was a very intelligent path by Forlan. He took the XP Quince, did the 2 camp plus Scuttle Crab on the top side, got up there around 250. Hard for Thaldrun to be ready for that. And then he continued to harass him on his way back to lane. So I think they're doing a good job identifying Thaldrun as the key person to set behind. And it's about if FB can figure out that we need to figure out ways to get him ahead.
See if they'll be able to do that. Well, CB Law have struck back against the TCL. We're going to see if they can keep the momentum going. Game 3 of 1907 Fenerbahçe versus Team One is coming up after the break.